Good morning, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the top stories for the hour. US President Donald Trump says he's not happy with the deadly strikes on Kyiv. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva warns of a major test for the global economy. Norway calls to integrate Türkiye in the European security framework. A deadly Russian strike on Kyiv has raised tensions as US President Donald Trump pushes for a peace deal, saying Russia made a big concession by not seizing the whole country. Despite this, European leaders and Ukrainian officials remain skeptical as both sides continue to face challenges in reaching a solution.
A devastating overnight assault on Kyiv has cast a shadow over US President Donald Trump's push for a peace deal in Ukraine, as Russia launched its attack on the capital, killing at least 12 people and wounding 90 more. The strike, which caused fires and widespread damage, prompted a rare rebuke from Trump, who posted on Truth Social, "Vladimir, stop! 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done."
Over the years,
At the Oval Office Thursday, Trump said Russia had made a pretty big concession by signaling it might not seek full control of Ukraine, a step he called promising for peace.
when I got out, and when you mentioned, I think he wants to make a deal. We're going to find out very soon, but it takes two to tango, and you have to have Ukraine want to make a deal too, and they're being hit very hard, and I do believe they want to make a deal.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who joined the president at the White House press conference, confirmed that more high-level talks are planned for the weekend.
It was a good meeting yesterday. There'll be good meetings over the weekend. We've shown them the finish line. We need both of them to say yes. But what happened last night with those missile strikes should remind everybody of why this war needs to end.
He's right here.
However, European leaders and Ukrainian officials were skeptical of Trump's optimism, questioning whether Russia's pause in aggression constitutes a real concession.
Frankly, it was because
In a recent episode of Context talk show, Orkan Amashov discussed the ongoing tensions between the US and Ukraine, which surrounded the peace efforts, even as Russia continues to strike Ukrainian cities, including the recent airstrike on the capital, Kyiv. How crucial is Crimea in this confrontation between the US and Ukraine? And what is the strategic importance of the Crimean Peninsula for both countries? Alexandra Filipenko, a political analyst from Vilnius, Lithuania, and Daniela Mello, a political scientist from Boston, USA, explained the rationale behind Trump's proposal for Ukraine and President Zelensky's refusal to accept it.
It is definitely extreme pressure, and definitely the fact that State Secretary Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff did not go to the meeting in London is also part of this extreme pressure. But the amazing thing is that recognition of Crimea is actually illegal under the American law. Under the American law, according to two acts countering America's adversaries through Sanctions Act that was adopted in 2017 and Ukraine Freedom Support Act that was adopted after the original annexation of Crimea in 2014, under those two acts actually that are part of American law, there is, for example, in the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, there is, I quote, Section 257.3, to never recognize the illegal annexation of Crimea by the government of the Russian Federation or the separation of any portion of Ukrainian territory through the use of military force. So in other words, recognizing Crimea as Russian is not just diplomatically strange, let's put it this way, it's bluntly illegal under the US law.
I think that we have seen some indications that Zelensky is willing to engage in diplomatic talks to bring a ceasefire into place and to then do a deep dive into all of these intricate issues. But there have to be red lines for a leader like Zelensky. And what he has been signaling in his attempts to deal with the United States and with this positioning by President Donald Trump in particular, is that Ukraine needs to continue to be a sovereign state.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says the US and European allies agree that Russia is a long-term threat to NATO. After talks with US President Donald Trump on Thursday, Rutte said that all NATO members agree Russia poses a long-term threat to NATO territory and the entire Euro-Atlantic area. He also reassured that despite Washington's growing focus on the Asia-Pacific, the United States remains committed to NATO.
So I worked with him for 4 years between 2010 and 2014. I stopped trying.
President Donald Trump expressed confidence that US negotiations with Iran over its nuclear program are advancing well. Speaking from the Oval Office, he stated that the talks are on track for a positive outcome, which could save lives, with a deal potentially within reach. Ahead of further discussions in Oman this weekend, Trump reiterated that the negotiations are progressing within a 60-day window he set. He also mentioned that additional countries will soon join the Abraham Accords.
He's been a great general, frankly.
IMF Chief Kristalina Georgieva says China must tackle its property crisis, expand social protections, and empower the private sector to boost long-term growth. She also warned that ASEAN economies are vulnerable to US trade tensions and should strengthen regional trade. Addressing speculation around Fed Chair Jerome Powell's future, Georgieva stressed that central bank independence is vital for global stability. She also highlighted that global economy is entering challenging times.
We have significantly downgraded our projections for global growth. Major trade policy shifts have spiked uncertainty off the charts, accompanied by tighter financial conditions and higher market volatility. Simply put, the world economy is facing a new and major test, and it faces it with policy buffers depleted by the shocks of recent years.
Türkiye is pushing to ease trade barriers with the United States. Trade Minister Ömer Bolat says he will formally request the removal of a 10% tariff during his upcoming visit to Washington next month. The announcement comes as Türkiye continues to expand its global trade strategy.
Turkish Trade Minister announced that he will formally request the removal of a 10% tariff imposed by the United States during his upcoming visit to Washington next month. Bolat made a statement during his visit to Japan, where he's leading a delegation of government officials and private sector representatives aimed at boosting economic cooperation. Speaking at the Osaka Expo 2025, Bolat underlined that Turkey and the United States maintain a strong trade partnership. He pointed out that the bilateral trade is currently balanced, with the United States enjoying a trade surplus. According to Bolat, this makes the 10% tariff imposed by Washington an unnecessary measure, since such protections typically target countries with which the United States has a trade deficit. Bolat said the removal of the tariff will be a concrete demand during his meetings in Washington. He also highlighted Turkey's far country strategy, which focuses on increasing trade with distant markets, particularly in the Americas. The long-term goal, Bolat noted, is to raise the bilateral trade volume with the United States to $100 billion. Turning to broader concerns, the minister warned that ongoing uncertainty in global trade could have long-term negative consequences. He expressed hope that more countries will recognize the risks of shrinking trade and will instead work toward a multilateral global trade system governed by shared rules and common sense. Bolat emphasized that declining trade ultimately leads to a drop in global income, a situation that benefits no one.
Amid shifting European defence priorities and a changing security landscape, Norway is calling for closer integration of Türkiye into European defence initiatives. During a joint press conference in Ankara, Norwegian Foreign Minister Espen Barth Eide emphasised the strategic importance of including Türkiye in Europe's evolving security architecture.
And on the specific issues,
Norwegian Foreign Minister Espen Barth Eide advocated for Turkey's inclusion in European defense initiatives during a joint press conference with Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan in Ankara on Thursday. highlighting the strategic importance of both NATO nations in the evolving European security architecture.
And I explained to my good colleague, Minister Fidan, that Norway last year signed a strategic agreement with the EU on security and defense, where we made very clear that our collective defense lies in NATO, but we're happy to be part of and contribute to the development of armaments, initiatives of standardization, and so on in the broader European family. And we believe that because of that, we are now been able to be more part of these new European initiatives on European defense readiness 2030. And I would very much support a similar development for Türkiye, because I think it is in our shared benefit that these developments involve, in principle, all European NATO countries. We welcome an increased EU interest in this area, but we believe that it would be good if it was open, and we see some progress, but a lot of work remaining.
Aida's remarks come as European nations re-evaluate their defense strategies in response to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war and a possible shift in the U.S. engagement in the region.
If we are now seeing a situation where the United States will become less engaged, this is something we do not hope, but if that is happening, it means that the rest of us have to do more and to take an even broader political, military, economic responsibility for steering this in a good direction. So we had very good conversations about this.
Espen, both Aida and Fidan also reaffirmed their commitment to a permanent peace in Ukraine that fully respects its sovereignty and territorial integrity, an alignment that highlights the shared vision of Türkiye and Norway in confronting European security challenges. As Europe builds a more inclusive defense framework, both Ankara and Oslo are asserting their roles as indispensable contributors to stability across the continent.
At the initiative of the Nomad Mania Club, travellers from 30 different countries have visited Karabakh and eastern Zangezur regions of Azerbaijan. During the trip, they observed reconstruction and restoration efforts underway in Shusha, Kankendi and Agdam. The main objective is to present these territories to the global community as symbols of revival.
This latest international expedition, which embodies the spirit of discovery and reconstruction, has brought together influential travellers from different parts of the world. Explorers from countries including the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, France, China, Australia, and New Zealand gathered in Karabakh to witness the transformation of the region.
I'm happy to be here. This is something unique as a traveler to come here. I couldn't really imagine these piece of actions, of government actions that are far away from Baku are here.
During the three-day visit, the delegation toured Shusha, Kankendi, and Agdam. Led by Harry Mitsidis, founder of Nomad Mania and a globally renowned traveller, the group observed the large-scale restoration works being carried out across the liberated territories.
We stopped at a few places and saw the mosque and other places, and it's just amazing to see how well it's taken care of, how proud you are of the heritage and of this region.
This marks the 13th such expedition since the Azerbaijani government began granting access to international travellers.
This initiative is not only about crossing geographical border, but also marks a turning point on a deeper emotional level, once known as a region of geopolitical conflict. But these lands are now opening up to the world, not with soldiers, but with storytellers, journalists, and travelers.
The aim is to shift the narrative from destruction to renewal, presenting these lands as a testament to resilience and recovery.
We are impressed about the progressions which have been made since the last 3 years, and all the buildings that have been rebuilt in the liberated territories. So we are really very proud and thrilled and honored to be here.
We entered the mountainous area here in Karabakh, and then things changed dramatically because it was very beautiful. a very nice landscape, and we enjoyed it actually very well.
Promoting the region through the concept of dark tourism plays a key role in this effort. This form of educational travel to post-conflict zones helps illustrate the historical, social and political transformation taking place in the region.
Moscow has voiced concern over the European Union's efforts to expand its influence in Central Asia. During his visit to Samarkand, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held talks with Uzbek Foreign Minister Bakhtiar Saidov and President Shavkat Mirziyoyev, making a number of key statements. Fariza Kamaruzina has more.
At a press conference in Samarkand, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accused the European Union of advancing an anti-Russian agenda in Central Asia. Lavrov said that while Moscow respects its partners' multi-vector foreign policies, some Western nations are exploiting this approach to push their own interests. He claimed European Union-funded programs are interfering in state institutions, including customs, border control and statistical services, calling such actions unacceptable. According to Lavrov, Central Asian nations clearly understand the goals the West is advancing. He emphasized that Russia supports regional cooperation with outside partners, but only when it respects national sovereignty. We never allow ourselves to interfere in anyone's internal affairs, he said. One notable moment of Lavrov's visit was his stop at the Grieving Mother Monument in Samarkand, where he remarked on the absence of a Russian language inscription. Only Uzbek and English were displayed. The comment sparked debate, with some Uzbek activists criticizing the remark. The visit came shortly after the first European Union Central Asia Summit, also held in Samarkand on the 1st of April, where Brussels pledged 12 billion euros for regional development. In response, the Russian Foreign Minister confirmed plans to host the Russia Central Asia Summit in Dushanbe this October, a platform aimed at discussing key issues of regional cooperation. Fariza Kalimurzyna in Almaty, Kazakhstan, A News.
Russia's special representative for Afghanistan visited Kabul to strengthen Moscow's ties with the de facto Afghan government. In a significant development, the Afghan Foreign Ministry has announced plans to soon appoint an ambassador to Moscow, marking a notable shift in Russia's engagement with the Taliban. Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
In a significant diplomatic development, Russia and Afghanistan's de facto government appear to be deepening their relationships. Russia's special presidential envoy for Afghanistan, Zamir Kabulov, met with the acting foreign minister Amir Khan Muttaqi in Kabul. The two discussed enhancing bilateral ties, expanding trade and economic cooperation, and addressing regional matters of mutual concerns. Foreign Minister Muttaqi expressed his appreciation for Russia's recent decision to remove the Taliban from its list of banned organizations, an important step that marks a turning point in their relations. He also thanked Moscow for accepting an ambassadorial-level diplomat from the Taliban authorities and indicated that Kabul would soon appoint an ambassador to Moscow. In a separate meeting, Mr. Kabulov held talks with the acting Interior Minister Sirajuddin Haqqani. Their discussions focused on deepening cooperation in the areas of security, trade, and broader bilateral relations. Since the Taliban returned to power in 2021, Russia has maintained steady relations with the group. While most Western countries closed their embassies in Kabul, Russia chose to keep its diplomatic mission open, signaling a pragmatic approach to engagement. Just last week, Russia's Supreme Court officially removed the Taliban from its list of banned groups, opening the door for more formal diplomatic and economic ties. That move now followed by Moscow's decision to accept an ambassadorial-level representative from the de facto Afghan government, an action widely viewed as a significant milestone. It is also reported that Russia is ready to begin working on economic and infrastructural projects in Afghanistan. Zamir Kabulov described the elevation in diplomatic ties as a new stage in relations between Kabul and Moscow. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
That's the world news for the hour. Keep watching A News for more updates throughout the day. Bye.